Hello and welcome, my name is Amir, and in this video we're going to write the game of Connect 4. This game has two players, red and yellow. They take turn and drop the coins from top into this board. And the first player that can match like 4 coins, either diagonally, horizontally or vertically, wins the game. I have already installed React. Using the npx create React app, you can do the same. So when I go here, I will first remove the stuff that I don't need. None of these. In the app.js, I don't want the logo. I don't want to render any of these. In the index, I don't want the index.css, not these, and none of these lines, and I can remove all of these and this test file. Okay, so now I should have a empty app like so. Okay, how should we write our app? So if we go here, we would see that we have a grid system of 6 rows and 7 columns. So first let's include that. I would go here, define a folder called constants, and I will have a constant here .js. Here we have a bunch of things that we need to define. So first is the size, which is 100. Let's define the number of rows and columns. So rows are 6 and columns are 7. Here in the app, we also need to define a few things so that we could use them in the CSS files. So 100 pixels, we have player 1 color and we have player 2 color. So player 1 is this color, and while here, let's define the app as a grid and place everything in the center like so. Here I would like to have 2 different components, one for the board, which will include this 6x7 grid system, and one for the drop zone, which will be here. So here I would add a board.js and a board.css like so. This will include the CSS file. Actually, it should import the size from the constants as well. So we would grab rows and cols from the, and let's define the board. Okay, now I have an array of 6x7 and I can render it. So return So if I go back here, I should have a, I didn't include it in the app.js, so let's go here and say that added automatically like so. And if I go back here to the app and to the board, I cannot see anything. Yeah, I need to say that this should be filled as well. So now I have my divs here. Okay, cool. So let's go and write some CSS for this board. I will just close it because it's already done. Here in the board we have a grid system. It's 6. Yeah, you can see that we have it here. And to have this effect that is, transparent here, I will include a SVG file. Okay, let's go here in the components maybe and add that. Actually, it should be here. Okay, now I need to go to my board.css and say that each of those items should have a background, not background color, but background of the URL. Okay, now I have my board. The next thing, as I said, is the drop zone, which will be above this board. So here. So I don't need these anymore. And none of these. So let's go here, drop zone.js and drop zone.css, and the JS file includes the CSS file. And let's first now say that it's a text. And then add it here. And if you go back here, we can see the test here. Okay, cool. So let's go back here. Our drop zone actually is the place that we define all the states and everything. So for now, we should know about at least one thing. So whose turn is it? Let's say player 1. And let's return some div with the class name of drop zone, which will have a simple div inside. So let's go to the drop zone, 1.5 of the size, and the div that is inside. So width and height should be the same. Then I need to say that it's a circle, so border radius is 50%. And let's say that it's absolute because it's going to move. And let's say that if it's player 1, then the BG color should be the P1 that we have defined, like this. And let's go here and say that that is P1, and you can see that it's blue. But the blue should be like yellow according to this. So let me grab a yellow color. Let's go to the app.css and change this one to a yellow. Yeah, it's much better. Okay, if I go back here, now I have the yellow one. Okay, cool. So if I go here and change this to 2, and basically this to 2, this should be the red one. Okay, so the next thing is that we need to know about the coins that we have dropped. So I will define another state. So call it dropped and then set dropped, and it should be an array of a number of objects. Each object should have a x value, a y value, and a player value. The player will be 1 or 2 based on the which player has dropped this coin, and the X and Y will be the position where it ends. Okay, let's have a few of these. So let's say 6 and 4 and the player 1. So as you can see, this can be the same as the state that we have here. So it can be like P and the turn, so that we are in sync with this one. And for the dropped ones, we should map them to a div basically. So let's say M and I, and we are mapping them to a div. Let's first give it a key of I is enough, and let's give it a class name which will be basically something like this to know the color at least, but it's not turn, it's just the m dot player, right? Okay, so to position it in the box, I will define it as whatever the value of the column is will be set by the margin. So if we are going here, so if this marble is here, then its margin left is 100. If this is here, then the margin left is 600. So for going to the left and right, we use margin, and going from top to bottom, which is when it's dropped, we will use the translate y. So let's say that they have a style of and we're getting the size from the constant that we have. Like so. So if we go here, you could see that they are almost in place, but they need to go like down. So let's say that this should be plus 50, right? So if we, for example, comment out these ones, we can see that we are in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4. So we are off by 1. So let's do this. Yeah, this should be 5 basically. And now it's correct. So we are in row 5 and column 4. So it's row 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and column 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is correct now. If I go back, now they are all in place, right? Actually, let me comment these out so that we suppose that we have already played one coin. Now we need to move this one horizontally, and when the user press the space or enter, then we can drop it. So in order to not make this component much more crowded, let's define a new component and call it active coin, for example. This can take the turn to know the color of the tile, and the list of dropped will be needed, and we should set the dropped when the drop happens, and also change the turn, and this should basically render something like this. Let's export it and go here. and send all of these along, and we can remove this as well. Okay, so this active coin needs to know the column that it is in. So let's define a state for that. Let's say it's 0 in the beginning, and here we can render the column. So we can say that, and we need to do it like this because we cannot have a class that starts with a number. We can go here and define a few CSS stuff for this column. So we can say that the drop zone for the one that is like column 0, then the margin to the left should be 0. We should have like 7 of these. So if I go here and say that the column is like 2, then it will be here. So if I go and say it's like 5, then it should be here. So it's working fine. So I will give an active class to this one and will define the column and everything according to the active one. So if I go here I should add the active as well, and it's working the same. And for the active, we can define a transition also. Okay, so if I go here and change the column to like 4, it moves, which is quite nice. Now we need to define the key press or key down for this component, that when we press the left or when we press the right, then these marbles move to the left or to the right. So in order to do that, we need to define an effect because it's a side effect, and we would say that document add event listener, and let's remove it when the component unmounts. Okay, we need to define this function. We would get an E, which is an event, and we would check that if the key code is like 37, then we should go to the left because it's the left arrow. And we should also check that if the column is bigger than 0. So if we are in 0, so if we are here and we press left, we shouldn't go to the left anymore. Then we can set column to column -1. Else, if the key code is like 39 and column is like 6, column is less than 6, then we can set the column to column +1. Go back here, and you can see it's now working great. Alright, the next step is just to add space or enter, and it should be dropped. Otherwise, if key code is 32 or 13, we need to know about a row as we know about the column. And in the beginning we don't know about the row. Let's for instance set the row to be like 3. Now we need to animate it here. So after having a column, we can also have a row. So the row can be like so. And let's go to the drop zone. And as we defined here, we can define for the row as well. And here, instead of doing the margin, we should do the transform translate. So transform and then translate, and it should be just along the y-axis, 50 px, and I can grab this, add it here. Here I go like row 5. But I can see that this is in front of the board, so maybe I need to define this one as relative, so it feels like they are dropping inside. So if I go here, board.css, now I can define this as a relative. Okay, so when this drops, we need to add it to the dropped ones, but just after this animation happens. So we can say that set timeout and add it to the dropped, and the new item, which is x, is like, let's say 5 as we defined it here, and the y is column, and the player is whose turn is it. So while here, after we do the drop, we can change the turn as well, looking at the turn. So if it's 1, then it's 2, and if it's 2, then it's 1. If I go and drop something, you can see that it changed the color to yellow, but it basically this is yellow, so if I remove this, you can see the red is beneath that. So now I need to move this from here up to here. In order to do so, I will have another effect that will basically reset the state of the active. So I would say whenever the turn changes, reset the column and row. Okay, now that we defined this, I should define this as 0 so that it would go up again. So if I go here and do this, you can see it drops, but it will be animated up. I don't want the animating to happen, so to say. So if I remove this one from here, you can see that I cannot move because now the state for the active coin, these two are both undefined, and I'm not checking against undefined here. So here, which means 0, just add to the column and say it's 1. Then otherwise it has a value, then just add 1 to it. Actually, we need to check here if the column is not 6, less than 6. So now you can see that it's basically working, but I don't like this animation to happen. So here let me do two things. So I would say that if row is undefined, meaning that it has end up here and now it's moving up, so now we should remove the animation. So if row is undefined, then we would say something like this, otherwise row. So in normal cases it would be row 0, 1, 2, 3, but in just moving from bottom to top it will be row dash dash. The same we will do for column, but it will not work now because I haven't defined the CSS for these. And here say that the drop zone, which is active and has the column dash dash and let's say row dash dash, then the transition should be nothing. If I go here and do this, it's working great. Awesome. But as you can see, we have a problem with number 0. So let's go and fix that as well. I'm basically done with this part. And that is done here because the column can be undefined as we move up, and then we should say column is 0 if it's undefined. So if I go back here, if I refresh, if I drop, it's working. If I drop, drop, and so on. Okay, so we are getting close to the end. The only thing is that when I drop here, I need to be calculating and stop here instead of going down. Instead of just hard coding number 5, we could get the length of this column and say length is those that have the column, or the column is like 0, and then get the length of these, and we should subtract 5 from this. Okay, we get the length here, and instead of saying that set row is 5, we can say that set row is len, and here as well. So now if we go back, see they land on top of each other. There is one more thing: when we are in such situation, we shouldn't let the drop happens. You can see that now the drop happens on top of each other, but it shouldn't be like this. So here when they drop, if we can find a coin which is the x is 0 and the y is our column, or is 0. I need to define or 0 here because it might be the column undefined here. So if you have found something like this, then just return. This should be like this. We cannot drop anymore here, but we can drop here. Alright, cool. So we're basically done with this game. There is only one thing, and that is checking the winner and if the game is a draw. Okay, so we have an effect which will run whenever the dropped dot length changes. It would say that if the dropped dot length equals to which means that the board is filled, then we say that we don't have a winner. Let's say -1, and so this means that we need to define the winner here. So it's 0 at first, which means that we don't have a winner, the game is going on. If it's -1, which means that the game ended in a draw, and if it's 1 or 2, then the player 1 or the player 2 has won. So let's have the rows and calls from here. Otherwise we can check for the winner. So find winner, which will be a function. that we will write. So let's go here and say that find winner is so how can we find a winner in a so how can we find the winner? If we go here and here, for each of these we need to check are there three to the right which are the same as this one in color, or are there three to the bottom, or are there three in the diagonal that are the same color as this one, then this player has won. And also in this direction as well. So if I am in a situation like here, then I need to check this diagonal as well. But I don't need to check it like this, so going from here to here is not needed because I have already checked it from here to here. So I would say that if we have something like this, then the winner is like win player 1. So we set the winner to be 1. We would have three different we would have three other ifs like this one as well. So this means that player 1 has won. The same goes for player 2. And here let's say that for now just like the winner, then the winner changes. Okay, if we go back here and to our console, the player number 2 has won. So let's do something that the player 1 wins. Again, player 2 has won. This should be true. So let's go here. And player 2 has won. Let's play again. And player 1 has won. Okay, now I need to remove this one. And here instead of just always doing the active coin, I would check for the winner and see if we have a winner. Then we render something, otherwise we can render this active coin. So if winner is 1 or 2, which means we have a winner, which means that if winner is greater than 0, we need to say that let's say we have a winner. Let's say we have a winner and define it here. It will get the winner number and it will say that we need to export it as well. And if we go back, yep, player 2 has won and I cannot play anymore. So I need to have a reset button or something here that when I click, everything resets and I can play again. So let's define a reset function here. This will set the turn to 1 again, and let me play with player number 1 always, and empty array, and reset the winner to be like 0, and we need to pass along it here. So reset like his, and let's get the reset, and here we can have a button. Let's say play again. Play again, yes. There is only one thing. Let me test the diagonal as well, and now red should win. Yes, I need player 2 as well. So I want this to be in one line. As you can see, this is this size. So let's say this is a P and this one is a P. So I want this to be in the center. Let's go to the drop zone here. Go back, and yes, it's in the center. Alright, cool. Yeah, the only thing that I need to fix here is that if the winner is 0, because so the only thing is that I need to check for the draw. Instead of just saying winner is equal greater than 0, we could just say that if we have a winner, or basically if the game ends, which is winner is -1 here as well, which means that the game has ended. So here and we can here say that nobody won or no player won. So yeah, as you can see, this is working fine. Thank you for watching. You can always add to this different CSS styles or any kind of other rules, adding to the rows or columns, or do other stuff. So thank you for watching and see you in the next video.